Meeting to order at 7:01. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to amend the agenda slightly tonight. We're going to replace points of pride with a moment of silence for Lexi Healy, and we will move up the MOU vote in light of our visitors to right after the first public comment period. Unless someone objects. Okay, I'd also like to welcome our new board member, Doug Sutherland from Hancock. They did a great job of appointing you very quickly. Thank you very much for serving. We very much appreciate it. Oh, okay. Since he's new, doesn't know anybody, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves? And thank you so much for, she doesn't feel good, but she's still coaching me along. Why don't we start with you, Krista?
Hi, Doug. I'm Tom Burgess. A newbie like you. I just started last year for Peterborough.
Hi, Doug. Greg Grable, relative newbie, second year, also from Peterborough. Doug, I'm Steve Ullman. I'm in my third varsity season. Established.
Hi, Doug. I'm Liz Swan, and I'm the representative from Temple, and I think this is a year and a half for me.
Hi, Doug. I'm Alan Edelstein, representative from Dublin.
Doug.
You got reelected.
It's nice that everybody's keeping count. Hi, Doug. Janine Lesser. I am the default chair. You're new, I'm new in this position. Our chair just left. And this is my 8th year on the board. Yeah. We have a couple members missing. Kira could not make it tonight, and Jim Frederickson, I believe, is in Florida. Is he in Florida now? Oh, Jim Frederickson couldn't make it. Well, he's from Sharon. Kira is from Bennington. Okay, in lieu of points of pride, as I mentioned, we're going to now have a moment of silence for Lexi Healy. Thank you. Lexi was a beloved member of the administration right through the district here, and they will miss her sorely. There have been a lot of, it's been very difficult for the administration to say goodbye to her. The calling hours, if you'd like to say goodbye to Lexi, are Friday from 5 to 7 at Jellison in Peterborough, And the service will be at 11 a.m. on Saturday at the Congregational Church in Hancock. Yes.
So Lexi, as she already said, was beloved. Her pillars of leadership were kindness, hard work, and perseverance, and she passed that on to staff and students alike. And she will be missed by both the administration, but she will be sorely missed by everybody in the district.
And with that, that brings us to our first period of public comment. I know we have a 2-minute limit. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda has the school board minutes, personnel, resignations, and nominations. I assume that you have read everything. Are there any objections to anything in the minutes? Greg?
Two things I definitely mentioned.
Make sure we're.
Tuesday instead of Thursday, please.
So noted. Does anyone else have any corrections or questions about the nominations or resignations? Okay, so noted, accepted.
We actually had a policy meeting 2 weeks ago before the last board meeting, and then we had another policy meeting this evening. There is a couple things that are going to go to legal and some things that will come for first to read as well from both weeks. So there's going to be quite a bit of stuff coming through. We also are going to have a policy roundup, I guess you could say. We might be changing the date on that. We're working on that to make sure we have enough people to be able to come. It's going to be an all-day event to try to hash out quite a few policies. But other than that, look for our new first reads. It will be coming.
Okay.
Monthly events calendar. That is my report.
And I am so sorry, after I said we were going to move the MOU up to under, I forgot. Okay, so let's, we need to move that MOU. Vote up. Do you want to say anything else about that, Superintendent?
So it is my understanding that the Peterborough Police Department and the Select Board voted this evening to accept the MOU as was negotiated.
So I make a motion that we accept the MOU as proposed and we have the superintendent sign it.
I second that motion.
Motion by Catherine, seconded by Liz. All in favor?
I
Oh, discussion, I'm sorry.
So I'm looking at the draft, which is the only thing I have, and the draft for the dollar value is blank. Do we have a dollar value?
$73,650 to the school district, and the balance of $23,683 by the town of Peterborough.
Thank you.
$23,683.
So-
Catherine, then you. Catherine?
So I attended the meeting this evening, because I wanted to hear the discussion and see this move forward, because it's a very positive, and needed position in our school district. And I did want to point out that the 23,000 that Peterborough's paying, it's important to note, and we do have people who can speak to this in more depth, that the town of Peterborough will be having that additional officer in the summer months. So it's not what it sounds like on paper. It's important to note that there's an agreement and that position is going to be able to be utilized by the town during the summer months. And they can speak more to that, I think, more effectively if you wanted those details.
Thank you, Chief, for that information. Alan?
Sorry about that.
I think it's wonderful that we have this in place, and thank you for all your work. When does the SRO become active within the system? Will that be the first of the school year?
Well, the SRO will be in place for
Okay. And one other thing, it may not be, but it is about the SRO, is that in a lot of the conversations I've had with people, they're confused. Some of them say they do not like it, but they're confused about the role of an SRO because different school systems have implemented the SRO differently. Are we planning to put out within the confines that we can we put out a communications to everybody to let them know what our implementation of an SRO is about?
So I already actually have JGPR working on that.
I'm sorry?
I already have JGPR working on that.
Super. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Then let's have a vote. How many are in favor? Ayes?
All right.
Nays? Abstentions? Understandable, Doug. Okay, let's see. So we moved up the superintendent's old business. I don't have a legislative update right at this time.
I put a legislative update in the folder from New Hampshire School Boards Association. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I know that the New Hampshire School Boards Association is working on how those many new laws intersect with policy. I was on the phone with Will today and last week, talking about some of those. So that's one of the yeoman's work of the policy.
Catherine?
Yeah, I think it's important to point out, I think the effective date on SB 410, public comment required, will be effective on September 6th. So just so the board is aware, we have to adjust slightly how we are putting forth our meetings because we have to have a 30-minute public comment period at each meeting. So it's not 2 minutes, we have to have 30 minutes open. So I just want to make that clear before September 6th comes along.
Okay.
It's been, I just, so the superintendents have been told that you don't have to sit here for 30 minutes. You have to be prepared to listen to public comment for 30 minutes and then then obviously you would choose to extend that if you wanted. But if there's no one here to comment, you don't have to sit here and wait for comment, just so you're aware. It's not adding 30 minutes to our meeting, just, that's the way that it has been explained to us. Now, with all that said, someone could have a different interpretation.
That's the way I read it too. Okay, Catherine, do you have anything else for us as far as the legislature?
Well, I think there's a whole lot, and some are effective at the beginning of this school year. And I think the School Board Association and the administrators, all the associations are working feverishly to make sure that everyone is compliant as soon as those laws become effective. So we'll just keep getting information as it comes. I think it's important that everyone read the summary, though, of the legislation that was shared out.
That's, we have said in the past, you have up to 2 minutes. So what we're saying now is you have up to 30 minutes to speak.
No, so this board has always had a public comment at the beginning and end of meetings, but there are boards in New Hampshire who have no public comment periods and because they feel that their meeting, while it's open to the public, it's not a time to conduct a back and forth with constituents. So you can structure that time, but you must have at least 30 minutes for public comment at the board meeting. So, and you could extend that time, which this board, I don't think, and this is my opinion after 14 years, I've never seen this board not accept public comment and extend, and like everyone in the audience, if you want to talk, the only thing I've ever seen anyone do is say, okay, you've talked twice, have somebody come up for a third time and ask them to please wait to see if there's anyone else that has comment before they talk.
Question is, each individual, we can qualify the amount of time they can speak.
I would want to double check that. That is my understanding, but I would want to make sure that that was clear.
You have to leave 30 minutes open. That's all what I'm saying is, can someone come and speak for 30 minutes?
No, I think it said it moves from, we have 2 minutes right now, but I think they put a new limit of 3 minutes on it. So we might have to change that limit, but no, one individual doesn't speak for 30 minutes.
Unless it's you. Can speak.
Let me just read the summary quickly because, well, everyone, if they don't have time to look it up. It says that where there was no previously requirement for public comment at a school board meeting, this bill adds to RSA 189:74 to require school boards to provide an opportunity for public comment periods at board meetings for no less than 30 minutes. So to Kimberly's point, if somebody came in, we could sit here, start our business, but if they come in that, we could say on our agenda, the first 30 minutes, they could really come in anytime, and then we have to, stop our agenda and allow them to have that opportunity. However, SB 410 allows school boards to request that persons register in advance of the meeting if we so choose, but that's not required, but we could ask for that. And we can reasonably restrict comments still to protect any student or teacher identity information and other confidential or privileged information. We can deny public comment virtually on Zoom if we so choose, and we can establish reasonable standards so all speakers are equally heard. So to the point of the 2 minutes, I interpret that to mean that we can impose a time limit as long as that there's a 30-minute period where people could come talk to us. Emergency meetings are not subject to this, nor are called for non-public sessions. So if we have an emergency meeting and we hold a non-public, we don't have to have a public comment period. So that is kind of the gist of it, and I think it's less bad than it was when it started, but there's still some constraints. So I agree that we can just have from 7 to 7:30 as public comment period if people if people come in. And kind of just keep asking in that time period if there's anyone with a comment.
Go ahead, Alan.
I'm just,
Steve, no, Steve. Alan
yeah.
didn't have her.
should we have a timekeeper? That is, we have the first half hour. Does the public have the right to a half an hour of comments throughout the entire meeting, or just? Okay.
We can still offer a second period of public comment, like we always do, in case there was something that we said. I mean, we've all been doing this, I've been on the board, and I think that's one. I don't think the bill was directed at us, but some school boards were not allowing any.
Kimberly.
Interestingly enough, this does not apply to any other municipality, only to school boards.
I know.
Well, welcome. Okay, so on to new business. We have 2 first read policies, GBCD, background investigations, and JICD, student conduct. If you have any questions or concerns about those policies, please contact Krista Salome, as chair of the policy board. Okay, the next is a school board goals discussion. There are 2 things on the agenda, and I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I believe that are we prepared to discuss our goals? I know you approved the administration's goals and the superintendent's goals, but it could be, yeah, very happy about that because we're staying within the superintendent evaluation policy timeline. But if you're not ready to discuss that this week, we can put that off until our next meeting in 2 weeks, along with the school board evaluation discussion, and make sure that we have the materials to review how this evaluation is going to work. So I need to hear some kind of preference from the board as to whether they're prepared to go ahead with goals. Dick?
Move to the next board meeting.
Okay, so,
I second that.
okay, Kevin?
I think we ought to have a plan in mind for.
The
what's gonna come
evaluation?
Forward at the next board meeting.
Right,
And
we,
it-
yes,
and
yes,
it-
we do.
And it-
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, it strikes me that some, maybe an ad hoc group should look at what the administrative goals are and then boil out of that 2 or 3 goals for the board and propose them at the next meeting, and then we can have a discussion about that. Or alternatively, we could each look at the administrative goals and try to identify some things we wanted to propose. That's a little more poorly shaped meeting because there'll be all kinds of things thrown out or very little thrown out. I'm in favor of an ad hoc 2 or 3 person group to come back with a proposal for us. But I'm not volunteering to be part of that 2 to 3 person.
Oh, that's the problem. Okay, Liz?
So I don't think that's a bad idea, Kevin. I think maybe what we could do, if you were so inclined, everyone, is do a shared Google Doc and maybe do a little brainstorming, like throw ideas into a Google Doc and then have that be at least a starting point.
Catherine?
So I like all these ideas, except I'm not volunteering either, but they're awesome. Might I suggest that we use our board evaluation tool privately, separately, and evaluate ourselves on our goals this year so that can help us
Okay.
move forward when we have this discussion, and we'll be ready not only with our individual evaluations of how we did with our goals as a board, but then that might drive the conversation into our future goals as well.
Does everybody have a copy of the tool, the board evaluation tool?
I
think-
can send it back out.
Okay, great. If you could send that back out to the board.
Can you make sure you send that as an email, because I can't get into the Google Docs thing?
What?
Nope.
Well,
So an email would be fabulous.
No problem.
does that board evaluation doc, is it going to have embedded in it the goals from
No, I'm gonna,
2021 to
I'm gonna
2022?
find them and put them in. Sure.
Okay, all right. So we board evaluation tool plus the 2021-22 goals.
Right, because that's what we're evaluating ourselves on, I'm assuming, on how we did.
That
as-
certainly should be part of the evaluation. So that would be very helpful, Catherine, if you could do that. Steve?
How different should the board goals be from the very ambitious administrative goals that we adopted last time?
I think,
I would consider just simply indicating that we support the administration in the things that it's trying to do. Maybe some reference to internal operations of the board, but,
Kimberly?
So, we can help you with this. We can facilitate the conversation. We can't participate in the conversation because that would not be, it's not our place, but certainly if you would like, if you fill out the evaluation, we can help you discuss the evaluation, and then we can help you, look at the administrative goals. Hopefully you would all look at them before and maybe do the Google Doc piece, but then Ann and I can, we facilitate all the time. We can use some protocols to help you have that discussion if you guys can commit to doing the Google Doc before.
Well, that would be preferable to a 2 to 3 person ad hoc committee.
I wasn't gonna
I
volunteer, but I
didn't-
thought maybe I
but
should
I-
help you guys.
But I didn't want to volunteer you for that, so,
Well, you can always direct my work. That is your job.
all right.
So the administrative goals were in the minutes of the meeting last time, so you'll be able to find them there. And so review the administrative goals for a discussion, and Catherine will send out the board evaluation tool and the board goals from the current year. And we'll move that discussion to the next agenda.
Do you want us to prepare to facilitate that?
That would be wonderful.
Sixteen.
Next on the agenda is the discussion on board and committee meetings. I understand that there were 2 board members that offered a different meeting organization for our committee, our full board meeting, and mostly for our committee meetings. So first of all, would one of those 2 board members want to offer a description of what the proposal was?
Dr. Kriebel proposed it, but I think it's a interesting concept that we might want to visit. In looking at some of our committees, it is the duty of the full school board to, in fact, write the policies for the district, which is our local governance and how our 30,000-foot view, and it's how we move our goals forward is through policy is one way. We are to help develop and then certainly adopt and monitor the budget, which is a goal of budget and property. So we're all very involved in that. And certainly education, we also set curriculum. So my thought was for some of the meetings, streamlining them and including them in the full board, because as per our own policy and the rules basically that govern us, we don't make decisions as committees, we bring forward recommendations and then we have discussions again. And I think that some of these discussions could be very productive if everybody was engaged in them and having a kind of a shared commitment to these 3 areas. I certainly think some committees would still be standalone. I think that would be necessary and important to be functioning. I know we're a board of 13, but our policies really do drive how it is. I mean, outside of the ones that are required by law that we have to adopt, kind of drive that. And certainly, the budget is the mechanism in which we realize our policies and objectives through the resources that we can provide. So that's just my idea. I'm not sure what Dr. Krebo is thinking on those lines.
Same thing, and I think it would also help increase involvement of the entire board for the various committees, because while we get reports, they're streamlined reports, so we're not participating in discussion, we're not all able to participate, we're not able to help make the decision, so we're relying on a small group to make large group discussions. And I do feel like if we had less reports and did more work at the board meeting, I think we would all be more engaged. I think we would all have more input, and I think ultimately, I think it would probably make us more efficient. So that was kind of my 1.5 cents.
Okay, so I heard the reasons, but could you describe what your vision is for how these when would we meet? And what would happen at these meetings? Which committees would be folded into the full board meeting?
In my humble opinion, they would all be. I would defer to Catherine if she thinks they don't all need to be. We can certainly have the discussion. My 2 cents is, we have a meeting a week. Right now we meet every other Tuesday. I would say we meet every Tuesday. And that would eliminate most of the other days of the week need for meetings. We could have, depending on what committee needs to meet, if it's budget and property, maybe we need an hour. If it's school lunch, the lunch committee, maybe we need half an hour once a quarter. So I think it would be, we would not do every committee every meeting. That doesn't make sense. So the first Tuesday of the month we do budget and property. Second, we do policy. Third, we do education. Fourth, we do whatever. And the occasional fifth month is that's when we can do the quarterly ones, because generally once a quarter there's a 5 Tuesday month. So by doing that, having one each time, we're spending a little more time on that particular one. We're not spending 5 to 30 minutes getting reports, and we're moving and being fully engaged.
So we don't have a clear picture of what the proposal is in order to make a motion and have a discussion about it. So would it make sense to ask Dr. Kriebel and Catherine to come back with a more explicit proposal so that the board could take a closer look on this and discuss it?
What I heard, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Liz.
I'm wondering if we can just have a discussion about it, because I've been thinking about it since it was mentioned at the previous meeting. And I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around how the logistics of that might work.
Right.
And the length of time those meetings would take. And I think if we're all sitting here, we're fully committed to doing the work that the board needs to get done. I also realize that we all have special skills and talents and areas of knowledge that we use in various committees in different ways. And I think for something like communications, a big conversation with 13 different ideas to put out a message, like an e-blast or, something on the blog or whatever it may be, or how to deliver something, it just makes it easier to have a smaller group focusing on that understands the way that communication flows. Now, we bring things back to the board to get approval and to have further dialogue. So I guess I'm just struggling with understanding how making every Tuesday a school board meeting to discuss all the things in school board, under the school board umbrella, would be time managed.
Okay, Dr. Kriebel.
So I mean, yeah, that's a fair question. I guess, I'm happy to come up with a plan. However, before I come up with a plan, I guess I'd like to at least get a thumbs up or thumbs down. If the majority of the board is going to be thumbs down, I'm not going to waste my time with Catherine doing something. That doesn't make sense. Furthermore, I do know that the administration is under some pressure to come up with a plan sooner rather than later. So, so yes, I don't mind doing something, but I'm not doing work for the sake of doing work because I don't have time for that.
Okay, Steve,
First of all, a practical concern. The Antrim Library Trustees meets on the second Tuesday of every month. So when one plans to run for the school board, one takes into account other assignments. And I also think that our current structure, for instance, the policy committee meeting twice a month, allows us to have intense, focused discussions among just 5 people. Not to get too deeply into the organizational behavior literature, but that literature does suggest when you get beyond 5 people and you have a concrete work product to produce, that task becomes more complicated when you have 13 people rather than 5 people or 3 people. So, 2 practical considerations.
Alan,
I think one thing that we have to deal with is that within the subcommittees or within the committee structure, there's a lot of discussion, and I think as Steve was saying, focus. But in turn, there's a lot of ideas that are thrown out, discarded, and then what is brought to the entire board is a consensus of what has happened within that committee. And that's really the purpose of them, is to take a look at a lot of the stuff that's happening and saying, you know, this isn't good, but what we will present to the committee is this. And then in turn, the committee, the whole school board looks at it and then makes an evaluation based on just that piece without the entire thing, which I think would be a waste of time for the school board itself. If that makes sense.
Kevin, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to clarify what it sounds like, and this is fairly simple, but it sounds like we would have no committee meetings. We would simply have 4 school board meetings a month. Is that right?
We would have 4 school board meetings a month, but over the period of each meeting, there would be time dedicated to each individual committee. So for, like I said, one meeting would be, and I think we could still have the same chairs.
So
I mean,
once a month would, the first Tuesday of the month might be the school board meeting where we did budget and property issues, and the second meeting might be the meeting where we did policy issues, and the third meeting might be the communication issues and
Correct.
that kind of thing. So you're hoping that the totality of the number of hours is either equal to or less than what we're currently doing.
Yeah.
And that's apart from Kathleen's issue, which is.
That's like any other meeting. I mean, if you have if a meeting is run well, you should be able to be in your time constraints. But obviously, there's variables with everything.
Yeah. I think one thing that this would change is that it would change the work that the board does, meaning this: the communications committee, for example, actually creates product out of nothing, right? I mean, you do. You create product, and then you either put out your product or post your product, or it goes to Guilfoyle, but you're doing product work. The budget committee under Jim does product as well. They take what they're given, but then they produce product. It's hard for me to imagine that in a group of 13, we will be able to produce product. I think we can process product in front of, with a group of 13, but I don't think we can produce product. So.
The other thought that just kind of came to me is the discussions that happen outside of those meetings in general. when we have a communications committee meeting and then we have to solidify the moving parts of different things that happen, we email each other, we communicate with each other. And if we were to absorb committees into the board, then it's 13 people communicating. I don't know how that would work with the constitutes a quorum thing on email, you know? I'm not sure.
I just want to clarify that the work that committees do is usually like feedback on this product that they've already talked about. They are not having unposted meetings, just like if you are all emailing each other back. So I just want to clarify that for anyone who's in the audience at home or here, the two people.
Doug?
I was curious, would this change the structure of the current meeting so it will take out reports, I guess, but would it change anything else? Will we be still doing old business, new business every week? And I'm just asking, does it change the structure of the current meeting? And you're in this view right now, not that you have to have anything solidified.
Greg, would you like to answer that question?
It could, it doesn't have to. I mean, if the administration doesn't have to report every week, because they probably would get bored with reporting every 2 weeks. So, certainly some stuff could be on and again, we could do some stuff 1 week, some stuff the next week, split it up. Again, my goal is not to work more. We'll start with that. My goal is to work more efficiently.
I'd like to point out that the board's business still has to be taken care of. Kevin?
I don't want my comment to be misunderstood about producing product. Maybe the board shouldn't be doing product. Maybe the board should simply be reviewing product that is brought to us. So in the case of the communications committee, maybe the communications committee should not be writing stuff. Maybe that should be administrative work that is then reviewed or directed by general thoughts. Maybe the budget committee shouldn't be putting out as much product. Maybe we should be simply reviewing what is given to us. I was just making the observation that it would change what is done, not that was either good or bad. Okay.
Thank you. More comments? So I will entertain a motion to move this project forward.
Janine, I think Dr. Kriebel asked for a thumbs up or thumbs down if he's going to invest time in it. And my sense from the conversation is that you're wasting your time. That's my feeling. So before we vote on it, do we even want to go in this direction to give guidance? And, as much as I would like to see that idea work, I'm not sure the practicality of it and how we make it work. So there's the piece that says, go ahead and do it and show me. But at the same time, I'm not sure that as a board, we're going to gain that much out of it, and we may increase more time demand than less time. So I hate to have you do it, but it would be interesting to see how it might work. If there was some model somewhere else that could be brought to us that doesn't require someone doing research, that might be worth looking at. But I think what we're doing now works. And if there's some other structure that someone's aware of it, bring that structure to us so we can see it. Seeing it, to me, it makes it easy for me. But the concept I like. If there was a way to consolidate what we do, so the whole board, and in some cases, having the whole board hear some of the discussion that takes place in subcommittees is important, but not always. I can assure you, all don't need to be there for the food discussion. It's important, but that decision can be made by a few board members who are involved and know what the ins and outs are. But other things, it's beneficial. So I'd say, don't waste your time. Could somebody find another model that they're aware of? And maybe that's a task we could move on to, I don't know who.
Thank you, Dick. I think Kevin has something to say.
Well, this board's peculiar. I have a lot of experience with school boards. Most school boards have 5 to 7 people, and they don't do committees. In fact, in the school boardsmanship business, they say, don't do committees, because not everybody gets involved, in the discussion and people don't know what's going on. This is very peculiar operation. So there are lots of models out there for not having committees and doing the work in board meetings. But do those models apply to a 13-member board? That's the question. And to a pretty skinny administration. But I mean, we don't have the load of administrators that would necessarily fit a 13-member board, a 5-member board, because on a 5-member board, they're not producing any product, nothing. They're simply taking what the administration brings to them and reviewing it.
Steve? Doug?
Is it okay if I make a motion? Okay. I move that the board look at a plan to incorporate committee meetings into board meetings. And let's just, if there is a second, let's just vote on it. And
Is there any more discussion? We now have a motion on the board to consider a model. Kimberly?
So, I know that Greg already heard me say this, there's a little bit of, I don't have a problem, but it may be something you want to, it could be just thinking a goal to look at your operations and how you operate. You have two policies, BEA, BDEE, which are both in your, that are both in your packet, and it does indicate you can always waive your policy, by the way, so you don't have to do this, but you need to notice that's going to happen. That says that the time to do that is at your reorganization meeting in March. So if you're going to do it, like, if you're going to do this and you want to implement it like right away, then the administration needs to know post haste, because you're talking about a group of people who, when they walk into this meeting, have already put in an 11-hour day. And now if you're going to extend, because it will extend the one meeting a month, there's no doubt about that. So you need to think about that and whether or not that meeting needs to move so that at the beginning of the week, we don't have 8 people, potentially more, who just put in a 15 to 18-hour a day. That would be tough. So I would just ask for you to consider, if you're gonna do it quickly, or consider maybe having this be part of the work you do this year. And I'm being very selfish, by the way. How you do your business is totally up to you, and we will adjust accordingly. I just do have, like I said, administrators who plan around the schedule. So, and I express that, I think, to you, yeah. So I'm not saying anything new.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor with a second to consider reorganization of the way the board does its business. Is there any more discussion around that motion? Would like to take a vote on that? All in favor? Okay.
Was the motion to do it or to consider?
The motion, I believe, is to consider a reorganization.
to basically come up with a plan that then the board can vote on if that's what we want to do. So, it's not to actually do anything, it's basically giving Dr. Grable and others, like, yeah, we want to see what this looks like, so they don't feel like they're doing something that's not going to be accepted. So basically, it's to
And
end the
the,
discussion we've already had prior to the motion, if that's what.
okay, and the superintendent has suggested that perhaps it could be one of the board's goals,
Just because if
which would give you
we're
more
not
time.
ready to do it, like, for the first meeting in September, I'd be a little worried.
Catherine,
I don't think the intent is to do it tomorrow. I think the intent is to explore options that engage the full board, create timed agendas perhaps, like many boards do, that have time slots assigned, much like we do for all our committee meetings. We have an hour, and just consider those possibilities. Because we repeat discussions and then go in a very different direction for all the committees I sit on every time we come back to the full board in my 4 years of experience. So
I move to
Kevin?
table the motion. It requires a second, but it's a priority motion. I move to table the motion, and the intent would be that when we talk about goals, we can talk about this as part of the goals.
Second,
So now you have a
Kimberly.
motion to- No, I don't have anything to say.
Oh,
I was just
okay.
gonna help you.
Oh,
Give a
okay.
motion to table, so
Mhm.
that has to be considered before the actual.
Okay, so when it's considered, so is there any discussion around tabling the motion as described by Kevin? No discussion. Then let's take a vote on tabling the motion. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Greg, is your hand up? 1, 2, thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it looks like it's unanimous.
I
So
think
it
that
loo-
comes back to the board as looking at a goal to look at this over some time, because there's some reality to what Dr. Kriebel's talking about that makes sense to me. I just want to see the structurally of that. So if we brought it back as a goal, as a board, I think that would make sense, and we certainly would be beneficial.
And my motion is no disrespect to the motion that was made. It was just, let's fold it into the discussion about goals.
Kimberly?
So I just, please remember to turn your mics on. We're getting emails from people who are watching that they can't hear us, so.
Okay. Okay, so then, the result is that this will
Janine,
be.
can I make one more comment?
Yes, Kevin,
It
go
strikes
ahead.
me that, it strikes me that one of the difficult parts about envisioning this is by having a committee structure that we have had for a long time, we have essentially created some sub-chairs of the school board. Because in many ways, Jim, and to some extent Catherine, are sort of sub-chairs of handling the discussions around budget. And Dick is sort of a sub-chair about handling discussions about education, curriculum kinds of things. And, we've sort of developed little areas of expertise so it's hard to imagine, for instance, going into the budget process without Jim. Or it's hard to imagine that we all might have to get involved in what Alan and Janine have done with the communications thing, So I think that's why building it into the goals thing makes some sense, because we have to clear our heads about the structure that we have informally created here.
So then the discussion will continue as part of one of the board goals. And if the board decides to go forward with reimagining how the board does its business, how this time is spent, then it will be part of the goals discussion at our next meeting. The next item on the agenda is policy BDB, board officers. Is this a discussion for our vice chair?
You should, so.
It's just FYI, wasn't
This policy clarifies what happens in the place of the resignation of the chairperson, which is that the vice chairperson becomes the chairperson. It also clarifies that in that you have the opportunity whether or not you want to have an interim vice chair. So that's what you need to think about, decide, whatever you want to do.
Dick?
I think we should have an interim vice chair. If you're looking for a recommendation, let's see, I don't have a Kevlar vest, so I'll just say it. I would like to recommend and nominate Alan Edelkine to fill that seat for the remainder of this school board year till March, I believe.
I'll second that.
Okay.
And
Kevin?
one of the reasons why it's a good idea to have an interim vice chair is that the the superintendent evaluation policy assumes that there is one and builds that person into the three persons who do that job.
Right. Any other nominations for a vice chair? I'm assuming that this preempted the discussion about whether you want to have a vice chair or not. I'm taking it for, okay, so are there any other nominations? Okay, so we have a nomination. All in favor of Alan Edelkin being the vice chair? Alan, how about you? Oh, sure you can.
I was curious if you wanted it. That's before I voted for it. You're gonna take it, but
Did you get a count, Brenda?
So far I'm seeing that it's unanimous.
Unanimous?
No, I
Okay.
think you have some, either, it's not unanimous.
Oh, we have,
Can we raise again, please? Okay.
nays? Or an abstention? Nay? Abstention? Okay. Okay. Okay, that brings us to our second period of public comment. And is there any member of the public who wishes to comment? Seeing there is no one, we will end that period of public comment. And that moves us on to approval of the manifests.
I certify that the manifest listed below totaling $324,603.72 has been reviewed by Lori and found to be proper charges against Kentucky Valley School District for goods and services received and has been properly processed prior to their submittal to the school board.
I move we accept the manifest as read by the superintendent.
Moved by Dick, seconded by Steve. All in favor? Unanimous? Oh, one abstain.
I'm not quite sure.
Doug abstained.
So when you vote, so every 2 weeks, actually members, per policy, members of the Budget and Property Committee will review the manifest, but Lori goes through like every single, that's her job, is to make sure. So we're certifying that these are goods and services that are being appropriately applied to the budget, and you're voting, basically when you vote, you're voting to pay the bills. So, but just to be clear, Dick and Jim, right, both also review the manifest. And you are welcome, any of you are welcome to come in.
And for the board to understand why this is important, the way we do it, is because those checks can't be sent out until they're approved. So if you all had to do it, you'd all have to be there, you'd all have to approve it and get them out. This way, we can expedite the payments of vendors, which is critical, because one of the criticism often from vendors dealing with school districts is the delay in getting payments. So this is an important way to make sure that we get that done. So that's why we do it this way.
Thank you, Dick. We do have a few non-public sessions for a student. Just one? That's it? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public session.
So move.
So moved by Dr. Kriebel, seconded by Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
We need to go round, say our names.
Krista?
Janine? Say your name, Doug.
Dick,
Doug?
Dick.
Thank you.